Welcome back to the South African Morning, and if you've just joined us, Dumelang Sanbonani, we're out here at Park Station on platform number 6. You may even, I think our cameraman Utedi will give you a shot there of the passengers adjacent to us on platform number 4, very up and bright and early to catch the first train out this morning. We, of course, here on our focus on the failing rail infrastructure in South Africa. But earlier on, I also mentioned a pleasant surprise in seeing how Park Station had been reinvented. You know, it has evolved over the years. Started in 1897, and this is research from Ustembile, who is our outside broadcast engineer. And this is a thesis that she studied. It started in 1897. In fact, this is not even the original Park Station. It used to be called Park Halt on the other side, in Newtown. If you're familiar with Johannesburg, it's now a museum and a national key point. But joining us now is the DA Transport spokesperson, Thamsanqa Mabhena. Good morning to you. It's a freezing Tuesday morning, but thank you for coming out. And just your view. I mean, I don't know when last you were at Park Station. Your sense in how things have been in the past 10, 20 years.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and good morning to all eNCA viewers at home. I think, look, the station itself, the precinct within, I think it could be better, but I think there's also been some improvement, sporadic here and there, where the management, Parasa, the entity, and the department have tried to almost upgrade. But I think the last major upgrade to the Park Station, the vicinity and everything else was during the 2010 FIFA World Cup. I think that's when the entire station received quite a considerable amount of upgrade, some sort of TLC, inside the station and everything else. But I think since then, unfortunately, the station has deteriorated. I think if you just look up, look behind you, look at the train tracks, at the platforms, everything else, I think everything could be better. But like we are where we are today.
Yeah. So let's just take that moment. I think that moment of nostalgia, 2010, where the entire world gravitated towards South Africa and everything was just sped up, expedited to make sure that we put the best foot forward. Why is it in your view that level of excellence was not maintained?
Yeah, look, I think perhaps maybe, on the eve of having international visitors coming from all over the world, coming to enjoy football, I think South Africa maybe had to put their best foot forward, and also looking at Gauteng as well. Gauteng was like almost the epicenter of the spectacle of the football FIFA World Cup, because many of the stadiums were here. I think we're the only province that had more stadiums than any other province. I think some provinces, they had only one stadium each, but in Gauteng we had a number of stadiums that we had the football could be played. So I think between then and now, perhaps given the fact that there hasn't been any major sporting event or major event in South Africa, then that's why the station is like this.
All right, so we're here to talk about the failing rail infrastructure. We've just had train number 9307 coming in on platform number 4. Earlier on, since we were setting up, we've had trains coming in from Naledi, at least we are told, which is a 40-minute commute, on time, and passengers seem to be, have a sense of confidence in the rail system. But we know that PRASA has also lost significant market share because of the inefficiency of the system. What are the major problems in your view?
I think maybe let's put it into context. In 2009, PRASA was making almost 300 million rands worth of revenue, and just 13 years later, in 2021, PRASA could only manage a meager revenue of just under 3 million rands. So from 300 million rands to 3 million rands, that should tell you. So PRASA over the last 13 years has lost about over 99.5% of their passenger numbers. So some of the challenges that we have, stations, referring to Naledi, Kliptown station is no longer there in Soweto, and many other stations are no longer, some of them have been allowed to deteriorate to a point where there's literally nothing left in those stations. So as such, you can't be running services because the customer interface, what you interact with between you and the customer, the service that you provide, it's not good enough, and it's not, or like it's non-existent. So as such, and also compounded by the fact that some of the rail tracks themselves have been, stolen and have been removed, and this has just been happening unabated as a result of some decisions which were made in 2019, which were unfortunate.
But isn't that because of a lack of synergy and collaborating government departments? You know, because PRASA in itself, theirs is to ferry goods and passengers and to provide the infrastructure. But if we just have a problem with vandalism, criminality being rampant, don't you think that that is more a policing issue than what it is an infrastructure problem?
Look, it's a combination of issues, and you're correct, Cindy. Perhaps maybe there's been also some sort of inefficiency from the SAPS, but also PRASA has a mandate to secure their own assets. PRASA has a mandate to secure their core assets, being the stations, train tracks, the trains, and everything else. And as such, PRASA has a budget internally within the institution themselves to actually make sure that they secure the train tracks. To remember that in 2019, the then Minister of Transport, Philem Balula, took a unilateral decision to cancel security contracts of companies, and then they were alleging that those contracts, some of them were issued illegally and fraudulently and all of those things. Since then, there has been a number of those security companies that have went to court to try and fight. Some of them have been successful, by the way, in court, and then they had to be reinstated in some of the areas. But as such, PRASA itself is failing to secure their most core assets. But also within the SAPS, you remember there was a specialized unit, a branch called the Railway Police. Some of them, some people might have some misgivings around it, but they were largely successful in ensuring that they preserve the core assets of the entity and they preserve the rail infrastructure in South Africa.
So you're saying the consequences that we're experiencing now manifest because of the erstwhile transport minister who had made certain decisions to cancel the security contracts?
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying, yes. So the then Minister Philem Balula took that decision, and as a result, we saw almost a complete wipeout of the PRASA infrastructure, from stations to train tracks. You also had a situation where in some of the stations and in some of the platforms, as a consequence, maybe as a spillover, you had people which were accessing platforms illegally without having tickets. There were no people to check because those security people were pulled off from actually making sure that they can provide those services. So as such, those decisions, unfortunately, we are where we are today as a result of those. But you remember, in 2000 just before 2019, PRASA was moving more passengers than they are moving today. And also taking it back again to 2009, PRASA was moving way too many passengers to even enable the entity to make revenue of almost 300 million rands.
Yes, but not all is lost. As you were saying, there have been some improvement and even the refurbishment or new fleet. There seems to be a different business model, and one would hope under the leadership of the current minister that, you know, it can only improve from here. Are you confident as the DA in the minister, the current minister?
Look, I think so far, I think it would be a bit maybe putting the horse before, the cart before the horse, to say that we have confidence in the minister. I don't think so. I think part of the challenge that we have within the entity, now recently, PRASA has had to let go of the board chairperson, one of the most critical people within the entity, to make sure that they can hold the EXCO to account. But also that decision to let go of that PRASA board chairperson took so long to make, even when allegations were ventilated in the media and everything else. But then the lack of inaction, decisive action from the part of the minister as someone that is responsible for the entity. As such, we cannot confidently say that we have confidence in the minister. I don't think we do have confidence until perhaps she proves us otherwise. But currently, we do not have any confidence in her.
And the role of the opposition, obviously, is to highlight the failures of the ruling party. But over and above that is also to come up with workable solutions and interventions. What is it that you brought to the table to say, look, we think this is something that is in the short term that you can implement and going forward?
Look, thank you very much, Cindy. I think the DA as a party in government and as a party that's in an incoming government in 2024 next year. So we can summarize the failure and the collapse of railway infrastructure maybe in 4 key areas. One, the issue of signaling. we have to overhaul completely the manual signaling and make sure that signaling in all stations, it is automated and digital, so that we can make sure that we improve efficiency but also preserve lives and make sure that we minimize incidents to absolute zero. One of the other critical challenges that you have now, you have a situation where I think we've spoken extensively about the issue of security, but we want to make sure that one, revive the railway police, but also use artificial intelligence technology to augment protection of the core infrastructure of PRASA, but also perhaps merge PRASA and Transnet. These two entities were separated a while back, but also we have a situation where currently PRASA and Transnet, they cross-invoice each other, and some of those invoices are under dispute, they take long to be settled. If you merge the two entities, you can potentially save over 1 billion rands annually within the entire system. But also, PRASA has lost key personnel in terms of skills, expertise within the rail sector. So you can leverage some of the skills from Transnet side. But then maybe lastly, the devolution of rail services to competent and capable local authorities. Some of the most successful democracies in the world, rail is managed at local level. Only long distance rail and speed trains are managed at national level and things like that. So I think if as a DA we come in, those are the key priorities that we're going to prioritize: signaling, security, making sure that we match the entities, and devolution of the rail
do you
services.
think we need a review overhaul of the political, especially the election process, in how members of parliament are elected, number one, because you were referring to the issue that the nationalization, or rather the centralization of power is problematic, to understand how this potentially could work so that we meet the international standard or the benchmark that you referred to. Do you think that we need an overhaul of the election process?
Look, not necessarily, because remember, at the center of this thing, it's people that you've appointed. Let me make an example. When the Constitution of South Africa was crafted in such a way that the people that were crafting the Constitution thought that a person of the caliber of the former President Nelson Mandela is going to be almost as a given that someone like that will ascend to that position. I mean, over the years, we've been proven totally wrong. So I think at the center of it all is the people which are placed to manage the rail infrastructure and rail services within South Africa. So if you remove maybe some of those people, then you can be in a position to begin to recover services, recover commuter services, recover freight, and also begin to make sure that you gradually increase and move freight and goods from the road into freight.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there as the train departs here on platform 4 on the other side. We're standing here with Thamsanqa Mabhena. He is the DA Transport spokesperson. Thank you so much for your time.